Hey everybody, Texas Stroker here, Lance's Performance Shop, Lone Star Mopars.com, KC Tool Haul number 89. That is right, we are here. Just did 88. I finally went in, kind of figured out where we're at so I could get the numbers correct for you. And this one is going to date back. We're going to combine two very small tool hauls. It's essentially what you can think of as the Black Friday pickup. Now, before we get to Black Friday, we had an order from the start of November placed. And one of those items you have already seen. I've got the box right here. It was the little Cobra XS Christmas ornament set, right? So we had to put that in like a standalone video because, again, obviously, me filming this in March and you seeing the video like in following summer or fall doesn't make a lot of sense, right? So if you're curious about those, I don't know if it's that pair or another pair, but I made them the ones that ride around in my pocket. So this is a situation. I've got the XS and the Pliers Wrench XS in the drawer over there, but these are quite handy to just have. You can see they've obviously been used quite a bit, but the other thing is you can just tell like they're filthy, and that's what happens in my pockets. The last, I don't know, since mid-January, we have, seems like multiple days a week where we have insane winds and, you know, brownout conditions type of stuff. So if you think like, hey, that looks like a ton of dirt, it probably is. Pocket lint, dirt, you name it. It's kind of cool. They get a cool little patina here. This is not from the dirt, like where you see sort of the black finish, and it looks a little brighter here than it does there. That's a great point of contrast because in my pocket I have other things, keys, knives, you name it, and so as that rides and rubs over time, this would be a low surface, this is a high surface. What takes the wear first? The high surface. So this is sort of like a real world look at some pocket kept Cobra XS pliers. So what do I do with these? Like anytime I get in a bind, if I have to pull staples from a box at work, you know, like inspect a motor or something, and I don't have like my, you know, bag with me, you know, and I'm like, oh hey, I don't have to go grab that, I can just use these. You'll know it when I slid that down, there's more like dirt in the tracks. And it's just one of those things. But yeah, pretty nice little set, I have to say. I had several friends that would buy these like for their, you know, dads or husbands and stuff. So I think it was a cool little setup, and it was a great buy. It's by far, that was your cheapest way to get into the Cobra XS line. Personally, not gonna lie, I might prefer like the 5-inch, but these have been in my pocket for, geez, months now, and I don't have any complaints. So it is strange though, because sometimes you forget that they're there. And I can't think of the number of times where at work in particular, it's like, oh, you know, I got to go get my pliers, and so I'll run off from where I was, and then I come back, and like at some point it dawns on me like, I totally could have done that with the Cobras. So you have to remember this operator error. You have to remember that you have those and they're in your pocket. So it's just one of those things. I'm not like some EDC connoisseur type person, you know, so I'm like, I have to break the old habits there, you know, like, oh, I can handle anything up to 3/4 of an inch because it's in my pocket, you know. So it will take some getting used to. That said, cumulatively, if you were to add all this stuff up, we would have exceeded $100. Granted, it's from 2 orders, and you'll see why we didn't quite meet that threshold on the next order here in a second. But if you exceed 100, you get the German Tool sticker pack. 75 get you free freight, and any order at all, whether it's $1 or $100, you get a bit of thanks. Currently shipping as a number 2 from Vits. So that's your background there, your little update. And what we're going to go with, when that little set, the Christmas Cobras, were ordered in, there was another item, which fittingly was from Knipex, that came in. This is something I don't know that I've ever seen a video on. And it is, I think I've used it, well, I used it once, so it's made like 2 cuts. Well, that's spoiling a little bit, but not much, because it's just kind of an under-the-radar tool, in my opinion. It is Knipex part number 9562190. It is pricey. It's $65.34. It's kind of a specialty tool. And what it is, I guess we should open the bag and do it justice. This is something for some of you. You may have this. You would probably be in the minority. There's certain fields, certain hobbies that you're thinking you're going to see this and be like, oh, I've had that for years. What's this guy talking about? You got to think of the broader scope of things, like everyone else, right, that may not be into and do what you do. And in those situations, it's a deal where Yeah, well, I guess I can kind of see what he's saying. But 95. So I'm trying not to show the head there. 95, 62, 190. You can see it's chrome vanadium, capacity piano wire. You're like, whoa, 2.5 millimeter. That's a big one. It's like, hey, what's going on there in the neck? Is that like a, what's that? What is that? Is it like a crimper or something? Made in Germany. Cool. Oh, there's a lock and an unlock. It must be significantly beefy, right? What's the deal? There you can see the part number, the vanadium. And if I roll this down, that's what we've got. So we've got the little switch here, and what does that do? It allows this guy to swing open, spring assisted, obviously, since there's a lock. And once again, we'll go from this side. Boom. So what's going on? That's a tiny... What are you... You know... You paid $65 to cut off screw heads? Like, we can't even call it a bolt cutter. You're just gonna, like, what can you snip off? Valve stems and, like, you know, number 14 screws, maybe? Does it even have that capacity? I guess you could cut these little things. Remember when, man, I cannot pick that up. There was a plastic divot there. But remember when, like, you'd buy a pair of shoes and it always had these things, right? You know? Not sure why that's out here, but it is. You're like, well, I could cut paper clips and I guess staples, but really? Like, why? Why $65 for that? Well, while it could do all those things, and I'm sure it would do them quite well, key rings also come to mind because there's one sitting back there. What it's actually designed to work with is this. You're like, that's a box, you fool, I can see nothing. And that's the point, because that box, what's in there, plays in with this. And, before you jump off a cliff, you're like, oh, master, that's Harbor Freight junk. Yeah, it is. But you got to understand what I was doing with this. So if you haven't pieced it together, this is wire rope, or as I like to call it, aviation cable. Why? Because I hung out with old dudes when I was little, right? So aviation cable, it can be a total pain in the butt to cut, particularly if it's sheathed, well, which it often is, especially higher quality stuff. Where would you see something like aviation cable? You're like, I don't have a plane. This idiot doesn't have a plane. This is a pointless purchase, $65 down the drain. Could have bought a 7-inch pliers wrench and called it a day. Well, stop and think about it a little bit, right? Granted, cars today, you know, they do weird things where you have a really laggy throttle, and that's because they are not drive-by-wire. They're not old school. They don't have throttle, right? I live in the 60s and 70s where there's throttle cables and they're never adjusted properly. And so many times you can't find what you need, or you like, the guy has some rods but not all the rods, and you're like, oh, we should just replace this, you know, like a low car cable or something. Or let's go to the wrecking yard and get one of those ones off of a GM vehicle that wraps all the way around. We go from the transmission over, around, and up to the throttle body that then comes over here, and you basically walk 2 miles to do what you could have done in a quarter mile, but hey, that's engineering for you. So essentially what I'm getting at is throttle cables, right? For some of you, I know there's a lot of you that are like super into biking, whether it's mountain biking, road racing, just, you know, general cruising the town on an old Schwinn you restore or something. Think of this, all the cables on your bike, right? You go buy your bike from Academy and you're like, man, these brakes kind of suck. And then you realize it's because the guy that assembles it has no idea what he's doing. And you might very well have to go and buy some cable, and you'll need to cut it. You can't use 100 foot on your bike, or the brakes will be even worse than he had them dialed in. Or you'll be trailing, you know, like 96 feet behind you type of a thing. So neither one's a good scenario, and that tool will cut it. They're wire rope cutters, essentially. And what I had them for, I would have really liked to have had these when I did birthday lights for my sister. And what I mean by that is I went in, I bought her like those little back porch patio party light things, you know, and I was trying to get by, but like I mentioned with the Cobras, it's very windy here, and so stuff like this that's overkill for some places is kind of required here. And I did not have them in that instance. I tried to get by without them. I wound up having to go down Ace. It's a small town. You gotta pay a premium and go to Ace, right? So I had that cut. The kid had no idea what he was doing, so I cut it myself. But long story short, had to go the wire rope route. And I also got her like a better one, you know, it was stainless and coated, so it's not gonna like flash rust or anything. Anyhow, The other things I do with this is like minor things. When you're like lifting or picking up, you can build little hoist mechanisms, right? Same thing. I had some idiots that were constantly deciding that they need to use my driveway when I'm not here, and that ticks me off. It's crushed rock. The more traffic on it, you know, the more it gets torn up, and they don't care if it rained or if it's flooding or if it's snowing or anything. And you come home and your driveway is torn up. And you finally get to a point where you're like, okay, well, these are people that don't work during the day like I do. How can I stop this? And I used wire rope. I'm pretty sure the first day it probably took some paint off someone's bumper, but that's the price you pay for learning not to trespass, right? So what these are good for is cutting wire rope, right? You come in, and that now makes sense with your capacities, right? You don't need much. You want it to be like this. You come in and you cut and you go to town. So throttle cables, I've always never had these in the past. Now I do. I've got something like this, which will side cutters cut a lot of this stuff depending on the diameter? Absolutely. But it's one of those things. This is very, very taxing on a side cutter. And I don't mean you coming in and having to, you know, squeeze it and reposition, you know, break your wrist again. What I mean is like on the blade profile, where you can sit there and you can use in that previous tool haul where we bought those side cutters from Knipex. If I just cut stranded wire with those, maybe they start to dull and disappoint us in decades, right? Like 10 years, especially like weekend warrior type stuff. Now, industrial use, you know, daily, you know, if you take them to work or something, accelerate the timeline. But still, years and years you can expect of good performance. If you're using those to cut stuff like this, while they'll do it, and they'll do it well for a little while, you're going to start to create, in your blade profiles, you might see a divot. It's not a big deal until you catch your like 16 gauge wire there and you're like, hey, well, I want to cut it, and you have to reposition it. It just increases wear. It's premature wear on your tools. The proper tool can prevent that. Am I going to cut stranded wire with these? Not unless I have to, if it's like really thick and my side cutters can't do it. But this is geared up specifically for stuff like this. So that is where this came from. That's why it's here. That's why it should join the arsenal. It's not something that you're, now some of you, yes, you might use that daily and it's like a huge part of what you do. For the vast majority of people, this will not be something that you use daily. It's probably not even going to be something that you use once a month. But maybe a couple times a year, depends, you know, what you get into, what all you're cranking out or tweaking. But it's one of those things that when you need it, it's super nice to have, and your other tools will be happy that you have it, and you can go to town in that manner. So what's in here, you ask? Well, just some sleeves. Now, typically, you know, when you cut this stuff and you fold it over, it's cut, right? And you can use little double saddle bolt clamps or something. You can also use sleeves like that for like a slightly cleaner install. And this will allow us to crimp these. If I recall, I put these on my wish list shortly after my sister's birthday. I was like, man, that really sucked. I didn't have a tool for that. That bothers me. And so it was a situation, I want to say, that was months ago, so don't hold this against me, but I want to say that they have a slightly cheaper version of this that doesn't have the crimper, but it's such a weird, you know, die that you would use for that it almost makes sense to just pay the little extra and get the crimper. Obviously, I do think they have these in different handles, but for something like this, I just like the 2-component. It's bigger, it's fatter, it's more comfortable for me. So that is what we have there, and that completes the early November portion of the tool haul. What's next? I tell you what, if you want like a demo of that thing, let me know. I intended to do that, but I'm also trying to like maximize my card and battery time here. So we're graduated from early November and we stepped in to Black Friday. This is where things get like crazy good, right? So this past year, what KC Tool Haul did, you get 20% off the entire site. Again, you'll see me like with certain companies like Koken, DRPD, you know, there's like a couple sales every year, and that's where I buy a ton of stuff. And I do that because I'm thrifty, right? I could come in and, you know, like every other week or so, you could order something in, or you can like think, you know, this would be nice to have, and oh, hey, that came out, I think I'd like to try that, and you just slowly build up a list. And then you unleash the fury a couple times, right? And you save so much money, it's hard to argue against that. Now, obviously, if it's something you need, if it's something required for what you're doing, if it's a job that you've got to do and you can't wait until Black Friday, yeah, you're going to need to go ahead and go a different route. But You know, if it's just slowly kind of building up your arsenal, that's the route I go, and I do it because it saves a ton of money. And that, of course, leaves more money to buy more tools. So this is, I guess we'll get started with this one. And what it is from NWS. It's their part number 1664-12-250. MSRP on this thing right now would be $59.30. Okay, $59.30. If you want this right now, you can see what it is. It's $59.30. What do you think we paid on Black Friday? Well, I'll give you a hint. It was 61% off, not 20, not 30, 40% off. No. 61% off. We paid $27 for this. That is $12 less than you can get the Icon knockoff of the Gen 1 Pliers Wrench from Knipex. This is NWS's take. This is something they came up with, obviously. You know, Knipex is going to get your credit, you know, as like the originator of the idea and concept. But what I like about other companies, when, you know, Stavilla, Gador, they put their own spin on it, right? They don't just blatantly copy it, even though patents do expire. NWS, made in Germany, right? Designed, engineered, poured, forged, stamped, decked out, laser etched, dipped, everything in Germany for $12 less than the Icon version. The Icon version, to its credit, it is heavy. Handles aren't bad. I do use the thing. It functions, but I told you, like, the problem I have with that tool is the price point of $40. You can easily, I tell you this all the time, like quarterly sales with Knipex, tool of the day. You can oftentimes find, and it's weird because the 10-inch version is oftentimes cheaper than, say, the 7, 6, or 5, which is bizarre, but it is what it is. If you're patient and you wait, you can find for $40 around that area, or even a little less, a Knipex pliers wrench. Okay? This Black Friday pricing, $27. $12 less than the Icon. Insane. And if you're thinking like, hey, I thought you already had one of these. Well, when we brought it in, and this is one of those deals, like I brought this in and it took precedence. I wanted to talk about the NWS pliers wrench, so we had to release a video early. This is what we got. Tricked it out. Titan finish. Both of these are Titan finish. You've got their dipped handle and you've got their sci-fi 2-component, which is super cool and I love. One of the best, really, comfort grips, if you want to call them comfort grips. There's a lot of places that have 2-component, a lot of places that make the handles fatter. This is actually comfortable. If you've never used an NWS tool, pick one, whatever it is that you need at the time or you use the most, or, you know, think you would get use out of because you don't have. Buy it, pay a little extra to put this grip on it. See how you like it. I've told you that for years. But this sucker right here is the one that I chose to bring in. It's been used a little bit. Sadly, what happens on these when you use them, that like light gray color, it actually looks clean in the camera. It is not. That tends to be where I get them dirty, like right there on the thumb pad, if you will. And then what I've been doing with these is turning. There's very, very little wear. But right there, I think it's... yeah, you can see the same wear there. What I was doing with these is they have grabbed nuts and bolts, obviously, you know, like big ones that I don't have, you know, wrenches for at the time. But what I've found, I'd never really like messed with this in all my other pliers wrenches. I started grabbing hex keys with those. And they bite really good. Like you would almost feel like it's such a positive reinforcement. It just, I can turn it. Like it's something that you need, like a long bit socket, and I don't have one. And if I grab that hex key with these, I can just like, it does not slip. I don't know why. Now it does sort of etch into the tooth a little, you know, the jaws of the plier, but that's where these have been seeing most of their action, and they've done really well. So considering this is the same thing for $27 now, I like these. Why? Because I like fat handles. However, NWS, there's some companies I don't like their like textured grip, and I hate their plain like just PVC traditional grip. I prefer textured over that. In some cases, I actually prefer this over companies' 2-component handles. But these suckers right here, for $27, that was something I could absolutely not say no to. The cool thing on the NWS Pliers Wrench, I know we've covered it in great detail prior, sort of sets it apart aside from the unique design and gripper there. It's just a deal where they've got the scale right there so you can sort of size it up, and then I have no issues with the articulation on them. The more you use them, the more you get used to them. The only issue is then if you jump back to a different brand, it's sort of like cumbersome because you get adjusted to something else. But what a freaking steal that was. I would hope that if you watch my channel regularly, you jumped on that and you've been using those since Black Friday or whenever. If they sold out, you know, I do my stuff like midnight, so I can sometimes catch it early. But I hope that you got those and you've been using them, even if it's just like a supplemental pair. Maybe you're all about Knipex. If you're working like gantry crane bolts, right? I don't have freaking 30 whatever millimeter wrenches sitting here ready to go. So I do everything with pliers wrenches. Up to 2-inch capacity, basically. So even if you've got your Knipex over here, you're going to need at some point in time, your backside, you're going to need the same thing. Maybe it's not a threaded hole. Maybe you've got a nut, right, that you have to hold as well. Come in, utilize them at 27, throw it in your truck, right? You know, take it to work. Put it in your roadside emergency bag. It replaces a wrench that at $27, you cannot go wrong. It's just impossible. So again, have I had these very long comparatively, especially Knipex, Ghidorah, and Stavilla? No, but I assume with what I've done, especially the hex key stuff, I don't know that I'd recommend what I'm doing, but I'm essentially creating like a T-handle is what I'm basically doing. I don't think there's going to be many issues with them. So if you picked these up on Black Friday, what I want to know from you is how have they held up for you? Are you using them all the time? Did they, obviously you leave your Knipex in the box or you keep brand whatever there and then these went in the vehicle. Have you had to pull them out? Have you had to use them? What have you done with them? For a lot of people, you know, like, oh, you know, like I have forklift people come out and they have Snap-on tools, but they don't ever use them. They're like spinning the Pittsburgh ratchet. Snap-on just sits in the bag. That might be the same way. Like you might not want to use your Knipex pliers wrench, and this thing subsequently might wind up getting used way more. So what has your experience been with the NWS pliers wrench? Again, if you want a deeper dive into that, we did it, and it's in a pre-existing video that you can look up. If I remember, I'll try to link back for it. This next item, okay, we went from 59 to 27 via a 61% discount. This next item, if you see it and you have to have it and you go buy it today, $120.69. Did I pay that? Heck no. It was 64% off. Again, I cannot make this stuff, not 50% off, 64% off. We went from $120.69 to $54. And if you're thinking like, well, that's a really good deal, but what is it? Well, this comes from Halder. That's right. We haven't had them on the channel in a while, have we? It is their part number, HA3117S003. It is what they dub the Dream Team Interior Workbox set. And you're thinking like, huh, I don't remember that. Some of you are like, oh, yeah. I know what this is. I bought it too. Couldn't pass it up. Well, this has been sitting in my toolbox and I've really wanted to bust it out, but I've held off and I can't really hold off anymore because I kind of, this is a crazy story, but I've told you, like, we have multiple days with 60, 80 mile an hour winds, just run-of-the-mill stuff. At work, here's the office, here's the shop, and there's this long hallway that goes from the office to the shop, right? Just narrow, that's all it is. You can fit, like, I guess 2 people side by side. You'd probably rub shoulders or the wall, possibly both, but it's probably like, I don't know, 10, 12 feet, and the office is closed, right? On windy days, we don't have doors and windows open, right? So it's closed up. In the shop, there's certain times of the day, whether it's a customer, a rewinded motor comes back, it's, you know, 4:40 and we're taking the trash out type of a thing. There are times when an overhead door will be open, right? And since it's been cold in the winter, you know, like we keep the next wing of the shop overhead doors down. So you essentially have like the shop, you know, sealed off from the rest of the shop and sealed off from the office. If, however, let's say that you worked with me, and you were taking the trash out. You put the overhead door up, you know, because it's closer than going out the personnel door to the trash can. It's understandable. And then let's say that I come out of the office, or you know, someone comes out of the office with an order. Here's what happens, okay? We've got the steel door that goes, you know, office to the shop, right? And then the hallway, you know, where it terminates, there's like a little wooden door that just goes from the hallway to the office, right? So it's a corridor, if you will, doors like this. This thing just stays open, right? It's kind of annoying. It was a gas strut, what have you, you know, it just, you open it and you set it there. It's not on a hinge that swings back or anything like that. It's not like typical commercial, you know. So it's like this door's like this, overhead door is up. Person in the office doesn't know. If you come in from the office down the hallway, open this door, it creates a vacuum, a suction, whatever you want to call it, and it can be quite intense. Sometimes, like, you get to the door and you like, you know, you have to sort of like, man, that's tough to open. You have to push. That's usually a red flag. Like, oh, hey, somebody's got the door up. I better be careful and kind of hold on to this. If you don't, if you just like open it up and it creates that suction. It was so windy that day, and I guess like the pressure differentials were so great, and this has happened before. It actually, this door here, this hallway to office goes, just slams. I thought the glass is shattered, right? I just called in an order from my office. I heard it and I was like, oh man, the glass just shattered. Like I heard the, you know, slam and then, you know, all the debris like rolling down. It was not the glass, okay? We've had that happen, I think, once that I remember, but it wasn't the glass. It was the trim in the door casing, right? So, you know, like your door comes in and you've got the door jamb, but then there's like that little piece that goes right way through the middle, you know, just like a little 1x or something, and the door rests against it like this, and it's got the little staple nails, you know. It slammed so bad that this piece, you know, where like the hinge lock should go, flies off and goes cascading down a tile floor, and then the top trim as well came off and went with it rolling down into the office. So I was able, you know, like the nails, like they don't just like take that and like come out cleanly and square, you know, they're those staple nails, 2-leg ones, right? And so it's a deal where like they kind of bend, some of them go up, some go out, you know, it's just ripped. This held better than that one, so where that one just came out relatively straight, this one's like, you know, this, you know, basically this part's straight, and then this one's just like held on for dear life as it was ripped away. So I got them lined up decently, and then I kind of forgot about it. I noticed it yesterday, actually. That's when I was like, oh, I need to open that and take it with me, because I kind of want to open it and use this guy. This is a 2-piece set, and see if I can't maybe deck those in a little bit better. I don't have staples like that. I'm not a carpenter. Typically we have like, we'll just take like a casting usually, because the rubber door things don't work in those conditions, and so I'll have something that weighs. I've currently got a junction box lid. That's like off of a big motor, so it's, I mean, heck, it's probably like 15-20 pounds, I would guess. Just giant piece of cast iron right there to prevent that from happening. But sometimes, like, you know, when it hadn't been windy, you know, you take that away so you don't trip over it, and door casing's gone. So that's why, and this says interior work now. Is it destined for interior work? Could you not do it for exterior stuff or under a car? You can do whatever you want to with it as a hammer. I assume your life cycle would differ, but there's something else special about this. This is Simplex and Secura or Secular, whatever you want to call it. We're kind of getting close to timing out here, but I'm going to try to rip through it. So this is this guy right here, 2-faced mallet. I'm not going to go into all the details yet. We'll see what they say. TPE soft, super plastic, medium hard. Right, so we've got low weight, soft, non-marring insert, blue for delicate parts, white insert for a more powerful impact force, and they say it's optimal for woodworking, and I'm gonna try that out, especially the white face. 350 grams there. This one right here is relatively new, as best I understand. It's an article right here, 30 by 40. They claim optimal for corners and edges, rectangular protruding inserts made of polyurethane, noise dampening and non-rebounding. I'm quite excited about that. High impact force at low weight, 680 grams. So this guy, 680 grams. This guy, 350, almost half the weight. And if you're thinking like, wait, you know, Halder, what did you buy from Halder? Well, it was this guy right here. So that's the Simplex. Can't quite remember the part number on it, but this thing, I bought a ton of different inserts for it. As you can see, I have just left this. I always intended to make a video on changing the inserts out and stuff. I wanted to just have one blue and then like whatever else I thought would be the most useful here installed. I've just left it like this. I actually really like this. It's got significant heft to it, and as you can see, she has done some work for me. But I think around the time I got that, I also got this little Picard. Its handle is like just timed out, but the handle is kind of like a Philo driver. It just gets dusty and dirty, but I've used this one quite a bit. I really, the Ghidorah, it's my first ever like German hammer, but I keep that soft face on it. I love that thing. This is very similar to that, but a smaller profile to get me in tighter places. It's also been good to me. But that is the Halder piece right there. And this little set, again, you got to think like, if you love this, if you didn't know about it and you got to go get it, it's $120. I got it for a steal at $54. Absolutely insane. Now, I'm going to go ahead and slide this guy out. This is just insane. And I'll talk about why here in a second. This got a little heft here. This one does. So we'll start with this one, but it is the Halder Secura, who knows? All right. I think I was aware of what this was actually called back before I bought it because I was new at the time. But the handle feels good. It's got some heft. Obviously, you're hearing some things there, right? So we'll come in and what can we hit? Not the center punch. We don't have anything we want to destroy. We'll just go with the mat. I'm gonna now just kind of loosen my grip, very dainty, basically like this, no real grip at all. We are hitting a rubber mat. Wouldn't say that's no rebound, but it's reduced. Especially this is a pretty hard face right there. So are these inserts interchangeable? I don't know that actually. You might kind of be stuck with what you've got. I guess if we break one off or wear it down, we might be able to investigate it. Didn't really prepare too much, but what I want to do that's super interesting to me is this. Okay, as I mentioned, this thing is heavy, right? This is cast iron right here. You can probably tell by looking at it. Do I have a magnet handy? PV Swiss does not lie, right? That's cast iron. It's magnetic, it's ferrous, whatever you want to say. So the handle, fiberglass, nothing metal here, right? Obviously the face isn't, but this cast iron, and that adds to the head weight, which can be a good thing. You know, you deliver a more powerful blow. You think, okay, well, this is the same thing. It's just this has a wood handle instead of the fiberglass handle. Some of you are going to say, I like wood handles better. Well, that's great, but here's the deal. I picked this up, and I know you're not doing it, but it feels like nothing. And same PB Swiss, case in point, there it is. If I take this, you think, well, it's going to stick here. This is silver instead of black. Well, what's the deal? He's faking now. You're like, oh, see, I knew it was magnetic. That's the fastener, okay? This is also the fastener. Right here, the head. If I let go, it goes down. Why does it do that? This is aluminum, and this is a huge selling point, especially when you consider, like, thinking of the scenario I described where it is truly interior trim work, right? You don't need, like, this is great for pounding away on stuff out here in the shop, but like for something I'm describing, like dainty woodwork in the office, this is just, it's like nothing. You know, like when you've worked out, you know, like you start your workout, you know, you like lug the barbell and put some plates on it, and you go to lift and it's heavy, and then when you're done and you're putting everything up and you grab the barbell, it's like, woo, you know, that 45 pounds that, you know, like felt heavy when you started, like you grab it and you like just fly up in the air with it. And that's the difference between these two, and it is quite crazy. Once again, I'm not making this up, and boom, right? So I can't do it. I've got the blue one here, it's just gonna fall down. Aluminum. One of these are very, very close to being the same thing, minus the head. In fact, if I go side by side here, this one is a 40 AL, this is a C40. I want to say, like, just check it out. And can I see this? Yes. Okay, this is your telltale. Simplex 40, you can easily read it on this one since it's brand new. This one's dirty, but I promise it says Simplex 40 as well. Where at? Right here, almost in the middle. It's more concentric. It's probably stupid to zoom in on it, but I'll try. I just want you to know that I'm not lying. Come on. I don't think it's going to show up with the dirt on it. My apologies, but I could essentially take this insert out and I could put it in this hammer, and I could take this insert and put it in this hammer. It's just set up that way. It's the same head basically, right? So slightly different, you know, with the fastener going through the handle. I don't know if that's fiberglass versus aluminum or what, but it's just, you would pay a lot of money for just this. Obviously, street value right now, $120. You'd probably come in about that price here, and then you factor in that you get this dead blow as well. It's just an amazing, amazing value for us. So that's it. That is what we got. I don't know how much more time I have on this card, so I'm kind of wrapping this up prematurely. If you ever want to see like a demo on this thing, you know, just let me know. Obviously, we've got the stuff to do it. Same thing here. What I really want to know from you, if you cashed in on the KC2 Black Friday sale, I'm sure some of you picked this up. How do you like it? How has it treated you? What are you using it for? Obviously, you know, like here in the shop, neither of these would be like ideal for what I'm doing most of the time, but it would be really handy for stuff I just described at the office where, like I said, I've got it back in, but there's a couple of the staples that were so bad they're kind of bent still. So I'll probably try to straighten them out and then drive them in. Something like this is going to be awesome for that. But let me know your thoughts on it, because again, this is just a stupid, stupid goodbye. And for, I mean, just grabbing that is insane. 305 grams, it's like nothing in your hand. This is heavier. The center punch, it's probably lighter, but almost feels like it wouldn't be. It's just, the difference is insane. So like I said, I'm sure some of you probably bought this and put it right to use immediately. Maybe one of them's in the collection, one of them, maybe you're using only this one and this guy sits around. I want to know your first-hand feedback with these, how it stacks up, how it compares to some other hammers. Again, Wesley left a comment on Coke and Tool Haul 9, which released today. He went into all these exotic woodworking brands and stuff that I haven't heard of. I'm not a carpenter. I don't do that side of things, right? I don't keep up with it near as much. But I think everyone can appreciate a good hammer. And this is one of those deals where if you're looking for a lightweight hammer, this is the aluminum head and the hickory handle. That's going to be really tough to beat. Again, these handles are fantastic. The Gador literally sits over here. Make sure nothing's on it. I think this is a 500 gram one. Still looks in really good shape. We obviously have a Picard. I really, really like these, the engineer hammers they have. But this one right here, the main selling point is that face. And I have to say, it is held up way better than I thought it would. But the handle here is going to be very similar to that, just scaled down a little bit. And I must say, I do like it. So your experience, your feedback, especially firsthand, always appreciated. Let me know how they've treated you. Same thing with the Pliers Wrench hanging out down there. And if you're someone this is a daily staple for you, what were you using before? Do you like the Knipex better? Are there any shortcomings people should know about? Again, for me, it's primarily used for like odds and ends, sort of patio lights, fences. I have cut a couple. I guess I've used that more than once. Obviously multiple cuts every time, but I did make a couple deals where like I was lifting something and I needed, you know, like I didn't have chain that I was going to tear something up with, so I used that for pickup points, and basically like you bring four corners together, you know, sort of make your own little hoist. So it's not been used much, but it has been used. And like I said, where that'll really shine for me is like kick down cables and throttle cables. Kick down particularly on old Mopars. So it's one of those things as cars get older and older and parts are robbed and taken off and reinstalled, where you once had a whole bunch of rods connected together. Well, Some of them might be missing, or they might be from a 904 instead of a 727, or from the wrong year model and not quite right, so that's where you sort of dial that stuff in. If you're curious in Chrysler, you don't really have anything that's application specific. You have to make it application specific. You pay a premium and then it's universal, and then you have to make it fit. So that's where that'll come in handy. So yeah, I'm also equipped if I ever date some chick that wants patio lights. Well, I've got the tools to get it done and make it look really nice. Not that she'll care, but I'll know I did a good job. So with that said, that's about it for the Black Friday haul. Plus, of course, everything else that we added there with the Bowden cable shears and wire cutters. And of course, a look at the EDC Cobras from the Christmas ornament. But low battery lights now flashing, so I better wrap this up. LoneStarMopars.com is the website. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, all three at Lone Star Mopars. Hope you enjoyed the video. Hope you learned a little something. What I want to know from you, aside from first-hand feedback, what did you score? What did you pick up from KC Tool for Black Friday? I'm sure some of you took big advantage of the 20% off, so while it might not have been one of their big items that was stupidly discounted, you might have cashed in on a wrench set. Maybe you bought a ratchet you've been wanting for a long time, socket set, who knows what it may have been. Leave that all down below in the comments, get the discussion going. But once again, thanks so much for watching. If you have not subscribed, I encourage you to do so. Ring the bell, jump your charger across the creek. YouTube just might let you know we got new videos every Saturday, 9 a.m. Texas time, as well as Wednesdays, 9 a.m. Texas time. But hope you enjoyed. Most importantly, I hope you have yourself a fantastic week.